Archangel Michael says, your person realized they lost you too late. They woke to an empty echo where your name used to live, and the silence answered them with the weight of 1,000 missed chances. What they had taken for granted now blazed before them like a sun they had closed their eyes to. The memory of your laughter thudded against their ribs, a drumbeat of what they had allowed to slip away. In that hollow morning, regret arrived with the force of revelation. They wandered through rooms that once held your warmth, tracing the absent outline of you with trembling fingers. Every photograph became an accusation, every casual object, a testimony to their absence of care. They had been certain time was theirs to spend, a currency that never dwindled. Now the ledger was closed, and the sum of their indifference demanded payment. You had not warned them with thunder or trumpet, you moved quietly, like tide shifting beneath a sleeping shore. Your departure was a quiet exodus that revealed the true shape of what they had. They watched you go and thought you would return because people always do. The heavens, however, had other plans, plans written in the patient ink of destiny. They call this moment awakening, but it is a reckoning dressed as sorrow. They are learning the curriculum of loss in the most brutal of classrooms, memory and absence. Each memory of you sharpens into a lesson they refused to learn when it could have mattered. Now they stand on the threshold of understanding, peering in and finding no door left to open. Type 444 to receive guidance. They search for excuses like men searching for shelter in a storm, but all roofs leak with the same truth. The reasons they mutter are thin paper over a fracture that required courage to fix. They had every chance to be the hero of your story but chose instead to be the understudy of their own life. In the quiet that follows, their conscience composes a lament they were always capable of singing but never rehearsed. Their apologies arrive like late letters, soaked in the rain of hindsight. They will speak of how they changed, of how they could be better if only given one more chapter. But chapters closed because your pen moved with purpose away from their fingers. Their promises now echo in vacant halls, hollow as a bell struck after the procession has ended. They read your absence like scripture, trying to decode the signs they ignored. They had the map but never bothered to look at the legend. All along the path, you left markers, small mercies, little constellations of care, but they walked with closed eyes. The night of their regret is long and feverish, they will flip through those small lights until dawn, understanding at last what they refused to see. For every cruel night they spent thinking of freedom, you constructed a sanctuary out of silence. You learned that leaving can be the softest form of commandment, no alarm raised, no last plea required, just an intentional turning, a setting of a boundary that is uncompromising. In that boundary they are taught humility by absence. Your leaving is not emptiness, it is a clear answer to a long-asked question. Type 777 to say thank you. They craft rituals of remembrance now, clumsy and desperate, much like children trying to hold onto a kite as the wind claims it. Each ritual is a confession, each confession a step closer to the truth. They will rearrange their world to fill the void you left, but the fit is always wrong, like square blocks jammed into round holes. They wanted a clean fix when the fracture required a transformation. You were a light they mistook forever. When you left, the city of their life dimmed to reveal all the corners they had neglected. Where once there was warmth, there is now a chill that will not let them sleep. They catalog the nights you supported them and tally the small betrayals they gave you in return. Regret becomes their companion, unyielding, intimate. They try to manufacture fate with fevered plans and promises whispered into the wrong dusk. They send messages that burn with the heat of desperation, they show up at thresholds where once they had not bothered to appear. But your absence has made space for someone else, or for something larger, or perhaps for the part of you that was always sacred and needs no reclaiming. Their entrance now is uninvited, and that truth stings. Type 333 to get blessings. They remember the ordinary days as if they were postcards written in another life. Shopping lists, midday laughs, the small argos of shared routines, they replay like fragments from a film they cannot edit. Each fragment is a lesson in noticing, each lesson is a blade that cuts straight to the marrow of what they failed to appreciate. They are learning to be haunted by tenderness. The universe, patient as it is, will not intervene to rewrite the choices made. Fate does not replay a recorded life because someone suddenly recognizes the loss. The cosmic order is not a charity for the inattentive. Instead, it is a mirror, and mirrors reflect with brutal honesty those features we try to hide. In the shadow of their remorse, they attempt heroism, but heroism requires consistency they never practiced. Grand gestures bloom like fireworks, and by morning their flames are ash. You have learned that small, steady lights are truer than booming, transient flares. Your quiet steadfastness is the lesson their regrets will keep. Type 1111 for healing. They ask the empty room for a forgiveness that can only be earned by change. Forgiveness is not a coin you can mint with panic, it is a currency born of persistent, measurable alteration. They must walk a different path, not merely speak of one. To transform requires shedding old skins and taking on a new constancy, something they have long feared. Their nights are full of rehearsals of apologies, rehearsals of the courage they lacked. They practice saying the right things and summon memory like a trembling actor trying to find the center of a role. But rehearsals without real rehearsal of the soul are only a kind of mimicry. They must become different, not merely more eloquent. They discover in their solitude that time is not a thief but a teacher, and her lessons are delivered with relentless clarity when one stops running. They begin to map the edges of their own shortcomings, tracing them with the finger of accountability. Every map started wrong can be redrawn with honesty, but only if the drawer is willing to see their hand tremble. Type 525 to recommit. Their friends become witnesses to a transformation that is, for now, raw and incomplete. Those who love them see the tremor and ask the hard questions others avoided. Accountability finds company, and in that company, they are forced to confront themselves. No longer can they hide behind charm or convenience, charisma cannot replace contribution. You watch this as one who knows the language of endings and beginnings, and your silence is not emptiness but a crucible. You allowed this because you saw the slow corruption of what might have been sacred. In stepping away, you kept the altar clean, refusing to burn incense before false gods. The world will call you cold, the cosmos calls you wise. Type 2468 to accept destiny. They will try to bargain with fate using deeds that repeat old patterns with new perfume. They will try to prove worth by adopting images they think you desire. But the heart you moved away from responds only to truth. It is not flashy currency that buys re-entry, it is the daily, sometimes invisible, acts of integrity that rebuild trust. Their pride will be the hardest stone to lift. It is heavy because they have set it atop the foundations of their choices. Pride will whisper that a single grand act can atone for a lifetime of inattention, but pride is the architect of relapse. The only architecture that holds is humility built brick by brick. As seasons turn, they learn that absence has teeth that pull away the soft tissue of complacency. The ache becomes a teacher, the ache shapes them, and sometimes, in the privacy of midnight, they weep for the self that could not love you as you needed. Tears are not weakness here, they are the salt that seasons new resolve. Type 909 to show gratitude. They begin to understand the mathematics of loss, subtraction first, then the careful arithmetic of addition, new habits, newly forged promises. They sign their names to commitments they once reneged upon. Yet even the best signatures cannot force the past to rewrite itself. There is no eraser for what was, only a pen for what remains to be written. You move forward with a dignity that is neither revenge nor mercy, it is something quieter, a sovereignty over your own heart. You will not act to punish them, you will simply refuse to be what you once were at their disposal. This refusal is not coldness, it is a boundary sanctified by self-love. In that sanctity you find a peace that unsettles them. They will stand before mirrors and try to see the person you loved, but mirrors show reflections of who they are becoming, not who they once were. The process of becoming is humbling and complex, and some parts will be beautiful while others will still sting of old neglect. They will carry the memory of your absence like a fossil, evidence of a life that tried to be whole and failed, then tried again. Type 1212 to receive clarity. They will try to write a letter to you that contains everything: apology, explanation, plea, but letters are inadequate when the heart needs demonstration. They draft confessions that line up like soldiers, neat and prepared for parade, yet the parade of change requires years, not pages. You will read these words and weigh them against months of unremarkable but true behavior. Words without work are like bells without clappers, they make no sound. They will attend therapy, join groups, confess to friends, they will build scaffolding around their intent to be better. The scaffolding is useful, but it is the building of the self that matters, the slow placement of stone and mortar until a new monument rises. Only consistent labor can alter character, and only altered character can win back what was given away. You will watch as their hands learn to hold differently, gentler, more careful, with a tremor that speaks of hard lessons. Sometimes this new gentleness will be enough to soften the memory of grief, sometimes it will only be a salve. Either way, you notice, you heal, and you move with the rhythm of someone who knows their worth. Type 888 to invite blessings. They learn that regret is not the same as redemption, regret is the raw material from which redemption might be crafted. Redemption demands more than sorrow, it demands habitual faithfulness to a new covenant. They must choose, each day, to honor what they once threw away. This daily choosing is the real altar of atonement. You will not rush to accept them back because your boundaries do not bend to urgency. They may plead, they may promise seasons of change. Yet your heart has grown wise and knows the difference between a sudden storm of emotion and the quiet, resilient rain of steady change. You wait for the rain that does not fray at the edges of winter. They will sometimes glimpse you from afar, on city streets, in mutual friends' laughter, and their breath will hitch with a regret that is almost holy. Those glimpses are lessons written in light, they teach them the cost of neglect and the currency of presence. It is a painful liturgy, but it is honest. Type 1010 to commit to truth. In their transformation there will be moments of brilliance, days when their actions radiate sincerity so clearly you almost believe in miracles. But miracles that are not rooted in the quotidian fall like meteors, spectacular, brief, and followed by black sky. They must build an ordinary life of extraordinary devotion if they hope to return to any version of you. They are forced to reckon with the life they led when you were near, how convenience had replaced care, how convenience became a habit that ate the marrow from intention. They will cut away those conveniences one by one, making room for the labor of love. There is no shortcut in this field, only tired hands and steady pacing. You, who stepped away, do not revel in their suffering, you watch with an almost sacerdotal compassion. You are not a judge dispensing arbitrary sentences, you are a sentinel honoring the sanctity of your heart. Your departure was a disciplinarian's mercy, harsh in appearance, healing in truth. Type 2020 to renew. They seek signs everywhere, omens on late-night radio, a song that sounds like you, a mutual friend's offhand remark, and they interpret them as if meaning were currency. Fate is not a vending machine, you cannot insert remorse and expect your former life to drop down. But they learn to read meaning differently, not as entitlement, but as invitation to change. Their family and friends will act as chorus, sometimes supportive, sometimes skeptical, and their voices will complicate the task of return. Some will urge you to forgive, some will warn you to guard. With these many voices, you must listen to your own inner oracle, the one that discerns between tribute and truth. Only you can decide if their transformation is currency or costume. In this crucible, they find a new humility, the kind that does not seek applause but seeks repair. They will learn to apologize without expecting absolution. They will learn to serve without counting days. And in this slow reformation, perhaps there will be a doorway small enough to slip through. Type 3030 to open to possibility. They will sometimes write your name as though it were a prayer, and the act of writing will shake them to their core. In those letters, slanted and messy, there will be truths they never dared to speak aloud. They will confess the banal things and the deep cuts alike, how they were afraid, how they chose comfort over courage, how they loved you as one loves a painting rather than a person. Their honesty will sting and sometimes heal. You will listen, if you choose, not to their pleas but to the pattern of their days. The days are where authenticity lives, small, repetitive acts of respect and presence. If their days change, then perhaps their heart has too. This is the calculus of trust, gradual, observable, irreversible only by a renewed pattern of neglect. They will attempt to build a bridge, brick by brick, but bridges require two hands, one to lay, one to accept. You will hold your hand out and see whether theirs is steady. Offering must be met with acceptance, or else the bridge becomes a monument to attempt rather than a path to return. Type 404 to find balance. There will be nights when they look up and whisper to the stars, asking for mercy they did not earn, and the stars will answer with a silence that is not cruel but instructive. Silence teaches better than thunder, it gives room for the inner voice to mend what external noise once shattered. In that silence they will discover whether they seek you for themselves or for the comfort of not being alone. You will not be a refugee camp for irresolution. You will be a sanctuary for someone transformed, not a hospital for someone in relapse. Your standards are not punitive, they are protective. Loving yourself taught you that. They will feel the pain of being too late like a scar that will never fully disappear, yet scars are also maps of survival. They will carry those marks as reminders, not as badges of shame. In time, those marks will teach them how to love with greater tenderness than they once possessed. Type 50-50 to heal together. When, if ever, they are finally ready, they will arrive not as conquerors but as pilgrims, humble, slow, bearing proof of changed lives. You will see the evidence in the small things, punctuality, listening, remembering the insignificant that once mattered. These are the bricks that make a home, not the fireworks of sudden promises. Perhaps you will open the door, perhaps you will not. That is your sovereign right, and whatever you choose will be just. If you open, let it be because you sense a new constancy, not misled by theater. If you close, let it be because your soul requires protection, and a protected soul is never a selfish one. They will live with the knowledge that sometimes love is a lesson we learn only when we lose the student role. They will be students of regret turned into practitioners of presence, and that alchemy will shape them into someone you might have known before negligence dulled them. Type 606 to accept transformation. In the end, their realization is not a melodrama but a quiet gospel, that time surrendered is not always returned, but time respected multiplies. They will come to understand that you were a living temple, not a convenience. Their late awakening will be a sorrowful hymn and, if they are lucky, the first verse of true repentance. You stand now in a light they cannot command, and that light is both a farewell and an invitation, the highest mercy, the right to choose your future. They endure their nights because they made them. You endure your forward steps because you chose them. Type 707 to claim your worth. The story is not about punishment, it is about education. The cosmos does not delight in breaking hearts, but it does insist on teaching the hearts that refuse to learn. You're leaving taught, in a language their pride could not corrupt. Whether they return transformed or remain in regret, the lesson will persist through the ages of their inner life. Hear this, loss is not always an ending, sometimes it is a crucible that refines what remains. If they became gold through their remorse and labor, then perhaps a future can be imagined that honors both the past and the newly forged present. If not, then your leaving was the preservation of something sacred, and preservation is also love. Type 818 to embrace peace. Let them sit with the knowledge that some doors remain closed because the heart behind them values its wholeness. You will not be a cautionary tale to be learned and discarded, you will be the living example of what happens when someone honors themselves enough to leave. In that example, others will find courage. They will learn to be kind to themselves for having at last the courage to change, while also learning the humility to accept that some things cannot be unmade. They will keep your memory, not as a weapon but as a guide. They will pray, perhaps, not for your return but for the capacity to love as they should have before. Type 9090 to receive forgiveness or not, your choice. And so the tale folds upon itself, like a letter sealed with the knowledge of what could have been and what may still become. Their realization is real, their remorse is deep. But your sovereignty remains, you who chose to step into your own horizon. Some stories bend toward reunion, others incline toward growth apart. Both are holy in their way. In the cold calculus of consequence, they measure what was lost and what remains, the quiet dignity of your life, the newfound toughness of your boundaries, and the ache that will remember you for all of its days. They realize, finally, in a thunderclap of clarity that pierces the fog of their earlier complacency, they lost you too late. Type 999 to send light. They wake from shallow sleep, your name still trembling on their lips. The dream of you lingers like incense, sweet and suffocating, reminding them that what was once certain is now unreachable. They scroll through old messages, trying to hear your voice through the static of time. But your voice lives only in memory now, wrapped in divine silence that refuses to answer their call. They finally understand the cruelty of their own delay. Love cannot be reclaimed through echoes, it must be honored while it breathes. They ran when you offered peace, and now they crawl where peace has already flown. In their chest lives a hollow rhythm, the heartbeat of realization, too late, too deep. Type 222 to receive closure. The angels watch quietly as they confront the truth, it was never you who was hard to love, it was they who were afraid to love deeply. Fear ruled their choices, pride masked their panic, and now, stripped of all illusion, they see your worth in painful clarity. Every night, they whisper a prayer not for reunion, but for forgiveness, from you, from God, from themselves. You, meanwhile, have crossed into sacred stillness. Your tears turned to wisdom, your longing into strength. The wound became a gate, and through it you walked into your purpose. You were never meant to chase, only to awaken. Type 333 to rise higher. They will try to find you again, not in flesh, but in echoes, your scent in the wind, your laughter in a stranger's tone. But heaven has hidden you, for you are not meant to be found where you were lost. You have ascended beyond their reach, your light too bright for their unprepared eyes. This is not cruelty, it is divine order. Archangel Michael says, the separation was protection. The delay was design. You were pulled away because your heart had learned what theirs refused to. You were being positioned for alignment, not abandonment. What was lost was not you, it was their chance to grow beside you before the harvest came. Type 444 to claim divine timing. And now, they live inside the aftermath, the quiet field where lessons bloom. They learn the sound of silence, the weight of stillness, the consequence of hesitation. They speak your name like prayer beads, but prayer cannot undo destiny, it can only guide the soul toward humility. You, radiant and resolute, stand beneath the same stars that once witnessed your tears. Only now, the stars answer differently. They tell you that closure was never about them returning, it was about you remembering who you are. You did not lose love, you embodied it. Type 555 for peace. Archangel Michael says, the chapter has ended, but the blessing remains. Their regret is their teacher, your healing is your crown. When love is pure, it never dies, it transforms. They will live with the echo of you, and you will live with the freedom of truth. So let the story rest now. Let the echoes fade, the nights quiet, the heart unclench. The ending is not the tragedy they believe, it is the ascension you were always meant for. And when they whisper, I lost them too late, the heavens will reply, no, you lost them right on time. Type 777 to seal the lesson in light.